Perspectivas Latinas, a community service of CAN TV. I'm your host, Juan Carlos Hernandez. Since 1982, LUCHA has helped residents of Humboldt Park, West Town, and Logan Square combat displacement and preserve affordable housing. It is unending work that includes education, community organizing, and foreclosure prevention, among other efforts. Here to talk about LUCHA and how they serve the community, we have Charlene Andreas. Welcome.
Thank you.
Great. Let's start off by talking about the history of LUCHA and what you know about it and how, I guess, people just came together around housing.
It started back in the probably the late 70s, early 80s. There were a number of individuals who saw that there was some disparity in the home ownership, basically lending practices that banks were doing. So they basically, a number of people organized around that. I think it was probably more common back then that, you get some community organizers, groups together, and they went to the banks eventually, and they went to the aldermen, and they went to the city, and they were able to put together, a program that basically now many banks follow to provide resources to the community, and also just fairer lending practices. So many of our founders are, Latinos, several of them Puerto Rican, and that was basically, we were founded in 1982 and have been working since then.
Wow. And what about you? How did you become part of this organization?
I joined LUCHA in 2010, so it's been almost 4 years now, and I had been working in affordable housing as an architect and had an interest in sort of how it all came together, the actual financing and funding. I knew there was much more to it, and I actually was, with the economy, I was out of work for a while, and I knew a friend who was the architect at LUCHA, and so that's how I ended up there, and I've been enjoying it since then. It's a great opportunity. I wear a lot of different hats. I like that.
Tell me about the hat that most challenged you when you first came in.
Probably for me, I would say it was just, I had to learn a lot about finance. I had to learn a lot about negotiating. We have, these projects are put together with a lot of team players. It's not just a developer, it's not just the architect. We get funding sources from multiple layers. In fact, when you do affordable housing, it's often called lasagna financing because there's so many layers of people providing money into the project. So you're dealing with everybody, trying to get everybody to a point where they're comfortable with the project, the amount of risk, and everybody's putting in their fair share. So you get to deal with a lot of different people, and you have to learn to kind of get everybody where they need to be.
Negotiating, I guess, what were you going to say something?
Basically like rates.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be like our developer fee, like when do we get our fee for doing the project. Basically how long the loan lasts, if it's a non-recoverable loan, is it a balloon payment at the end? And all of those start to play in also to our ability to make it affordable. So when we're doing building development at a new project for rental housing, obviously we're trying to make it affordable. We focus on 50% AMI, which is about $36,800 for a family of four.
What is AMI?
It's area median income.
Okay.
So basically when you're doing the census, a lot of that data goes into that, and that's what we utilize to kind of figure out where people in our community, what their income level is at. So then we can focus on making sure that our financing and our rents allow our rents to be affordable to those individuals.
So the median income is about, in that area, is about what?
It's about $36,800 for a family of four. So it goes by percentages, and it goes by family size, which then relates to how many bedrooms you have. We also service families who make 30% AMI and 15% AMI. So those are start to considered very low income.
Wow, yes, that's
those are people who really, need the assistance that we can provide and the housing we provide.
So you came in, you're an architect, and in LUCHA you develop you help develop properties, right? And
Mhm.
and you touched on some of that and the negotiation of rates and all these different players. Like you said, it's lasagna,
Financing.
lasagna financing. But tell me about the process of uh, building or getting a property and the process of rehabbing and maybe making it available to people that could actually
Afford
seek
it.
your services. Yeah.
Our properties, it's a long process.
Mhm.
We're dealing with a lot of different agencies and regulations. So we often start with basically working with the community. One of our projects is called Madres Unidas, and that actually started out of a group of single, women who were the single owner or family provider, and they had kids, and they had to find an affordable place to live. And they were finding that landlords weren't renting to them, or they felt like they were being discriminated against, and it was hard to find affordable housing when they're a single source of income.
Right.
So they came to LUCHA, and LUCHA sort of met with them. We have community organizers at LUCHA, and so they tend to be the ones that work with the community first to sort of develop what the idea is or the need. And then we build from that, so then we seek out where we could put the building, where's a lot that we can put it on. We try to seek out city lots because we can get those, at a very low cost, if any. That helps us make the project affordable. Then we have to go through, acquisition. We work with architects. We work with, engineers.
Right.
We have other people working with us, and then we usually have at LUCHA use what's called a low-income housing tax credit. That is a mechanism that was started back in the 80s, basically to get investors involved in helping to make affordable housing. So we get the tax credits here usually from the city of Chicago. Illinois also has tax credits. We get those allocated to our project if we do, we qualify. And then those, we basically sell them or syndicate them to an investor, and that investor then gets basically a tax credit, which helps with their tax. It's usually more of a corporate. It helps corporate, but it
Right.
also helps our community.
Right.
So
So once you have that that property, then construction or rehabilitation begins. And
yeah, we work a little bit with the architects to see what needs to be done. We talk to the people who might be residents. What would they be looking for in the housing? We talk
Okay.
to our other tenants. What is it that they would be looking for specifically? Like, is it going to be 3-bedroom? Do we need 1-bedrooms? Those are the kind of things that we would look at.
you're taking into consideration family size and
And even location, like, do they need parking? Is there a
Right.
community space in the property? Like, we consider that. And then all that goes into working with the architect to come up with the final design. And then we work with the contractor who then builds it. And then it's leasing it up, and then we go from there.
So take me through the process now of an individual that needs the service and comes to you and wants to rent one of these apartments or.
Most of our tenants come to our office, which is on North Avenue by Central Park Avenue. We have applications that people would then fill out. So because we are at 50% AMI, and because of our funding sources, we are required to meet those income limits. So we basically need information from an applicant about like what their income sources are. They don't have to necessarily have a job. It can be Social Security or disability benefits, child care.
Right.
All of those can contribute. And then we look at the family size with the income and determine if they qualify. Once we know that they qualify for our unit, so we would meet with them one-on-one and go through and gather all the information that we need for compliance. And
You need proof of income.
we need proof of income. We need to verify the income. We do a credit check, which is required for our compliance. And just we go through the general information of what the unit is. We show them the unit so they can be, comfortable. It's a place they want to live.
Right.
And then once they go through the interview and we get the verification of income, then we go through and sign the lease. We go through the lease with them, what the house rules are, and then we give them, sign the lease and give them the keys, and they can move in.
Oh, wow. Now, what if a person is undocumented? I'm sure that's
That
an
actually,
issue.
for us, it's really not an issue.
Mm.
For our units, we're not, it's not something that we cannot rent to somebody who's undocumented.
Mm-hmm.
We actually did have a question about that because of our funding source,
Mm-hmm.
and we went through that, and that's really not an issue. I think there may be some subsidies out there that would possibly, have issue with that, but for our source of funding, that's not where we wouldn't have any problem renting to anyone like that.
Wow. So this person gets established, and what if they eventually want to become a homeowner? They're like, okay, I've been renting here a few years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's some examples of people that have gone through that and they're on their feet financially, they're doing well, and they're like, now I want to purchase a home. Even maybe they don't have a huge income, but they still can dream with that. How does that process work?
I mean, that's actually like an ideal situation for us if we can get someone who can move in to one of our rental apartments, maybe just long enough to get stabilized, kind of get, work up in their career maybe,
Right.
or get a job that works for them. We recently rehabbed 4 of our buildings, and we had 2 tenants actually who were in that situation. Their incomes had increased while they were living with LUCHA, and they basically were at the point where they want to move into sort of more of an ownership. So LUCHA provides home buyer counseling. So we do workshops, and then we do one-on-one counseling after the workshop. We have various resources that we have access to, partnerships with banks and with the state for closing costs and down payment assistance. So if anyone's interested in home buying, we try to put them through the workshop so they can at least get the sense of what they have to deal with. Sometimes it may be that they have some, credit issues or debt issues, and we'll work with them to sort of work those out. And it can be maybe a few months that we'll be working with them before we get to the point where they're actually what we call mortgage ready. And then we can work with them to find like the best program to fit with what they're looking to purchase. And the 2 women that we had in our building, one, she's still working on her credit, so she's one of those individuals. The other woman actually bought into a co-op, and so she's been really happy there.
A co-op, how does that work?
A co-op is where you basically, you're purchasing sort of a share of the property. I don't know a whole lot about co-ops. We don't have co-ops at LUCHA, but she basically, you buy in, you're not paying as much as you would with sort of a home purchase, but you do have ownership rights.
Okay.
So, and you basically would sell your unit. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Well,
and it's probably getting more common. There's a lot of discussion in community development about co-ops.
Really? Well, it's obviously something you said that LUCHA doesn't do, but why do you think that is? I'm curious.
I think it's just been our income level that we focus on tends to be the lower income level. So we're at 50% AMI or less, like I said. That tends to be the lower income. Most individuals who would be at this level of sort of dealing with a co-op would be maybe around 60 to 80% AMI, so maybe closer up into 45,000 maybe a year for income level. So. Okay.
I'm curious, since the huge bubble burst back in, I guess, 2007, 2008, what have you seen, even though you've only been with LUCHA since 2010, but what have you seen in terms of housing prices and people moving in and out of the areas you serve? Is there still this fever? Has it diminished? Is it growing again? Tell me about how you're seeing that.
In Humboldt Park, like when I started at LUCHA in 2010, there was obviously a lot of people who were just starting to go into foreclosure, and there were a number of developers who had properties that were like in a mid-conversion. They were taking what might have been affordable housing or rental housing and converting it to condos, which was a concern for LUCHA at the time, and that was actually, we were looking at various programs. We got involved in a program called the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. There's been several phases of that program through the city of Chicago. We rehabbed 2 foreclosed homes, and we sold those. One of those homes, interestingly enough, like just a few years before, had been purchased for $300,000.
Wow.
Had gone into foreclosure, and through this program, the city acquired the property for much less than that, like less than 100,000.
Less than 100. Wow, from 300 to less than 100,000.
Yeah, and it was like a 2-flat home. We basically then took over and did the rehab. And we made it into a single family home with 3 bedrooms, really nice open plan on the ground floor. And we sold the house at $165,000. So it was much more affordable. The whole program is geared towards households at 80% AMI. That program is actually still operating. LUCHA itself, we don't have any properties for sale.
Right.
But there are a number of other community organizations that have been in that program and have homes for sale. So that's another option for home buyers.
Okay.
It's a way to take a home that's been rehabbed. In some cases, you might be able to take one that's still waiting to be rehabbed, and you can get it at an affordable rate. You basically get a junior mortgage, which is eventually it's a forgivable loan.
Oh, really?
So after 15 years, if you're still in that home, that loan's basically forgiven. You don't have to pay that.
That's what you call what kind of a loan is that called?
A forgivable loan.
Forgivable loan.
Yeah.
And you said another word, junior mortgage?
A junior mortgage. So like you have your main mortgage, like if you're going to buy a house, you have your main mortgage, which is the majority of what you're paying. But the junior mortgage is what helps to make these homes more affordable.
Okay.
So that's basically taking kind of some money and making it cheaper for you.
Okay, kind of pushing the prices down.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned a word that, well, since that crisis, foreclosure has been a problem nationwide, and especially in our city. We have a lot of empty homes in our city now. I think close to 40,000, I believe, if my research is right.
It's been, Chicago is really hard hit, and Chicago is probably hit, kind of later than maybe say California or the East Coast. And it, it's a good and a bad thing because LUCHA's been there to help out. We have a number of counselors who do various foreclosure programs. So unfortunately, in a way we've grown into that and we've been providing a lot of service on that. But then again, we're also trying to find ways to sort of combat foreclosure. But if somebody is in that situation, they should definitely reach out to a community organization like LUCHA, find out what programs are available and if we can assist them. There's a lot of people going out there saying that they can help them for a fee. We do not charge any fee. And unfortunately, once somebody gets in the situation where they are paying a fee to like a lawyer or attorney somewhere, we can no longer help them with the programs just because of the guidelines. So I really would urge anyone who's in foreclosure to really seek out, community-based organizations. I mean, LUCHA's in Humboldt Park. We have workshops and events around the city. Talk to your alderman, see if there's any events coming to the area around you, and get that help and get it for free because you shouldn't have to pay for that. And there's a lot of programs out there. There's HAMP, which is to make homes affordable. It's under a program called Making Home Affordable. Cook County has a program that if you actually receive your summons and you are basically in foreclosure, we can still work with you. We can provide basically through that program, we can provide one-on-one counseling. We can get pro bono legal services to help you through that process to try to get a loan modification. So there's lots of programs still out there. Unfortunately, Chicago, there's still a number out there, but we are kind of seeing a little bit of a dwindling, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a bit of an uptick in the home buyer kind of attendance at our home buyer workshops.
I'm curious, also related to this, question of foreclosure, a lot of people losing their homes, and I guess I don't know if it's necessarily lawyers or people in that arena taking advantage of people with these problems, but certainly they should seek, like you said, and I just want to make it clear, they should seek help from nonprofits or organizations that could provide these services and these workshops. What exactly happens when a person has to go through foreclosure? What do they have to deal with besides the legal questions? Are there other related issues that?
Well, basically one thing that we're looking at or the counselors are looking at is where they are as far as being in default. Are they on the edge of not being able to pay? Have they already not been paying for a certain amount of time? where are they with employment? Are they employed or are they out of employment? So we look at their whole situation because everyone's really in a unique situation usually, we find. So we need to meet, we do the workshop, and that's a way to get general information. And I should note that our workshops and our counselors, we do bilingual, so we can do Spanish. Our workshops are basically English and Spanish for the workshop.
At the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you come in for one-on-one counseling, you can see a counselor who is Spanish speaking only, or we have English speaking also. So once we meet with you one-on-one, we need you to bring in a lot of documentation. So that's really kind of the critical step at that point. We need the information on where you're at, what your situation is, and specifically where you're at, because different programs can help you, at different stages. So we have to see which program you fit best, and then we work with you to kind of get all that information together and submit it to either the lender or through the program. We'll upload the information and send that into the program. So then we work on getting a modification. And, we've been pretty successful for modifications, but, there's also times where we end up going through a short sale or a deed in lieu. So there's various options, and we work with you to get the best option for that individual.
Could you tell me what both of those terms mean? A short sale? And
a short sale is basically if you owe more money on the property than
it's worth. Okay.
So then we work with you on that. And we have other people, like our workshops, we bring in realtors. We have other people there to help. And we have, a number of banks that we work with who are all part of having to deal with, getting these modifications. So.
Okay. And you mentioned another word before.
A deed in lieu, which I honestly have to admit, you would have to talk to one of our counselors about that more.
That's fine. And obviously people can go to your website and or call, and we're providing that for our viewers. Now, people obviously, we're not just homeowners. We're human beings with different issues going on in our lives. I'm sure at Lucha you've encountered families or individuals just saying, I need help, not just with my house, I have other issues going on in my life. What do you do with these folks?
We do have, various referrals. We are trying to work on sort of rebuilding, building a stronger network within our community. There's a lot of organizations that do great work in the Humboldt Park and probably all over Chicago. We know a lot of those organizations through just various relationships, so we can provide referrals. We do have a program called TACCOM, or emergency assistance, and we can basically help you get assistance for rent assistance. We can help you get assistance with utility payments. If you're having issues with a landlord-tenant issue, we can provide referrals on what organizations can give you the help that you need. Our SRO, which is a single-room occupancy building, has 68 units. We provide supportive services to our tenants in that building. So we have a committed staff member who's there to meet with them. They have a medical issue, we can work with them to make sure that they get the right services, or that they get help with insurance, or getting help in paying for that. Also, we have people who are just sometimes looking for help finding a job or getting training. They want to kind of change, they're out of work, so now what do they do? We can help them find those kind of programs. And I think just overall that's, what we're, in the past, some of our programs kind of almost pitted organization against organization because of the funding sources. But I think we're seeing now that there's also a lot to be learned and benefit from helping each other, because we're focused on housing at LUCHA. I won't say that we're going to do, job training. But we understand that can be part of the whole thing of having, being able to afford your housing, maybe because you have a health issue. So we try to work with each of our tenants and our clients to sort of find that way to stabilize their life.
Yeah, and house is so important to that, right? Having a place to call your own, a place where you can, I guess, be at peace and just be yourself. Which leads me to another question. You also have a sustainable home ownership program, right?
And that's basically what I was just referring to. So once you buy a home, you know, we're not just done with you and you walk away from LUCHA at that point. We have other programs that we can work with you to sort of help understand how to maintain your home and go forward and the things that you need to do as a homeowner. And then further down the road, if you're, you know, especially for seniors or those with disabilities, if you get to a situation where you're not able to utilize your home, especially like your kitchen or your bathroom, we provide modifications for those individuals at either no or low cost through the programs that we have. So we can modify a bathroom so that the sink is accessible. We can take out a bathtub and put in a roll-in shower if they're in a wheelchair. Sometimes it's just simply widening a door for somebody who might be using a walker or a wheelchair ramp. So those kind of services we also provide. So if you're with a disability or you have somebody in your household who's a senior, we can provide services to modify your home so that you can stay in your home longer. So
that's awesome. Now we're basically out of time. Tell me what your vision for LUCHA is going into the future. Very briefly, I know that's
I would say the vision for LUCHA is really to sort of really make sure that everybody can afford to live in our neighborhood, in our community, and to work with everybody to sort of understand what those needs are and kind of create all these partnerships and collaborations, because housing is part of you know, having a good life, and there's a lot of other things that contribute to that, and I think there's a lot of people we can work with. No one can do it alone.
Right.
We're just out there as one of many.
Well, Charlene, thanks so much for coming out today and sharing this important information with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Perspectivas Latinas is a community service of CAN TV. If your nonprofit organization would like to work with CAN TV, call 312-738-1400 and ask for nonprofit services. Tune into Perspectivas Latinas for local issues and concerns every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on CAN TV 21. I'm Juan Carlos Hernandez. Thank you for joining us.